Welcome to another Saturday night and taking it to the nub. This is my co-host, Quinton Brown. I'm Boston Jimmie. And Q, it's been taking me a while to get this guest on because everybody's so busy. And I'm so pleased he's taking his time out.
That's not why. His name is Sebastien.
Yeah.
Anybody who's got the first name Sebastien, they're hard to catch.
Okay. We'll get you're gonna take this show over in a second. All right. So we're gonna bring in Sebastien from Cavalier Cigars, and let's learn a little more about who Sebastien is and what his cigar line is. Sebastien, welcome. Thank you for joining. Taking your time out.
I got banned for a bit. I appreciate you guys. And thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm used to say us because I've been dragging Brian on all these lately, but not today.
She's going solo here. So
how's everything?
We're good. I think Q and I we're smoking we're smoking the USA. Thank you. I thank you for some that showed up on my doorstep.
I went today for the new release, actually, the Inner Circle. First time there's no gold.
I was going to say there's no gold on that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that when we get into the gold discussion. Maybe you ran out of gold. Yeah. Gold prices are down. He sold everything.
Oh, gold prices are stupid right now, but yeah, no, it's other reasons. But yeah, no, gold is funky, and as a fun side note, our providers, we actually learned yesterday that they were going for holidays for a whole month, so we had to find a secondary solution to cover their needs for the month.
Oh wow,
I love it. You know, you've been working with guys for like over 5 years, and they can't even fucking tell you when they all leave for holidays. Just randomly when you send them an order, and they're like, "Oh, we'll be away for 3 weeks." Yeah, that's not gonna work out.
There should be a holiday calendar where people put their names in.
Yeah. Well, an email, if you have regular customers, we literally order every month, right? We have a pretty tight schedule with them and everything. So you kind of expect getting an email or something, but apparently not. So improvising a little bit.
Well, smart businesses know how to navigate around road bumps. So you'll figure it out.
You have to.
You can't survive otherwise. But when I think about surviving, so have you known anything other than the tobacco business in your life? I mean, because you started very young.
Yeah, I started really young. I moved to Central America when I was 22. So started really young. But yeah, before that, I had some corporate job experience for a couple of years. You know, big company headquarters, and interesting, but not something that I felt like staying too long in. And then before that, I actually had a very interesting experience, which I really, really enjoyed, and I think it kind of linked with the tobacco at some point. I worked with wood. One of my family members, granduncle, has a very old company where he works with very special woods, several hundred years old, and things like these. And I had the chance to work with him for a bit and learn about that. And very interestingly, the one thing that I kept from it, I'm really bad with my hands. So the one thing that I kept from it was not the technical skills, but it was definitely the smells. In the morning, you would get into that workspace, and it would smell. You could know which woods you worked the day before because of the remaining aroma and smell you would have in the workplace, which is very interesting. I didn't realize how much it impacted me until after I stopped doing this. So it didn't last long, but it was an interesting experience. I said, I'm not very skilled at building stuff, so you
were able to distinguish the unique aromas of different types of wood, which is applicable, obviously, to what you're doing now. I always
Yeah,
liked that
no,
in
and
wood shop when I was in high school.
yeah,
Different, somebody's cutting oak. You knew somebody was cutting oak versus mahogany.
and it's crazy, and it's very pungent, right? It's things that are, it's beautiful, beautiful smells that you get from those woods. It's really incredible for people that would not have had this experience. Just stepping into one of these workspaces is very unique for that. But yeah, I didn't even realize that, because at the time I was not even smoking cigars, so I didn't relate to anything. And just years later, just hit me straight back in the face, saying, "Oh, see, that's the one thing crazy. The one thing that I kept from this experience was actually that."
Now,
Sorry
how
for me
long have
drinking
you
water,
been
but it's
doing
so hot.
How long have you been doing your cigars now?
It's been something. So I started. It must have been between 6 and 7 years now, close to 7 years, something like that. I first started back in Switzerland, right, where I'm originally from. In the US, we moved here only about 3.5 years ago. We had some presence before that, but obviously nothing compared to what it is today, right? So about, I would say about 6.5, 7 years, something like this, since I started the business, right? And before that, I actually lived and worked in tobacco in Central America, in Honduras, for about a year. So you add up with the business itself, 6 to 7 years, and then an additional year already previously living locally in Central America, well, learning more than anything else, right? It takes quite a bit, and I think it's the one way, at least for me, it was the one way to do it. It's the fact of getting your hands dirty is important. I don't think you grasp how this business works as long as you've not put cigars in a cellophane yourself, right? As long as you've not been sitting at one of
That's
these
not
positions
easy.
and actually, yeah, and actually do that whole day long, and you kind of, it allows you to grasp things differently and understand the people behind it, and what it means to do these jobs. And it's not easy, as you said. It's a real fucking nightmare.
Man, when you put that, especially if you have the band on, not too tight and it moves, you drop that in the cello and it's like, because you got to get it. You got to get it on the right side of the cigar so that it can, the cello can fold up. Because if otherwise it's off centered.
Yeah, it has to be centered, and before that, I think more importantly, you have to, your cello comes flat, right? So you actually have to open it, slide your cigar in with the right angle, not get stuck with your bands or anything, and actually push it the right way so it doesn't turn or anything. And you're supposed to do that actually very fast. I mean, you're talking probably the same thing as bands of somewhere around 5,000 cellos a day.
Think about
it's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah. And so I said, it might sound stupid, but I think for me, at least, it's the one way to understand what it means, what this business means in terms of product, at least, not market and stuff, obviously, but in terms of product and the understanding of what it takes to make a cigar.
Now when we think about bands, you're known for, besides having a band on some of your cigars, like your whites and your blacks, but you also use this gold diamond on it. And what was it like to have the conversation with your factory when you told them what you want to do?
So yeah, so until a couple of weeks ago, everything we always did was with that gold diamond. Right now, we kind of branched out, and I'm sure we're going to touch on that at some point. But to answer that question, at the time, we obviously didn't have our own operation, right? It wasn't our own factory at the time or anything. Working with third-party factories that were part of the Placencia family network. And we always had an amazing relationship and pretty open in terms of discussion and everything. But when we brought that to the table, it was fairly I always like to joke about the fact that if Adine at the time had a gun closer to him, I'd probably be dead. Because it is very much, it's extremely complicated. It's very, very, and I'm sorry for the wind, it just suddenly windy out of nowhere now. It is very demanding. It is very long. It is very delicate. It's a very complicated process. It's a very unique process and very complicated. It's not something that was done before, or at least not this way. To put it that way, nobody had really looked at it as a band or anything, and we really thought of it as a band and a symbol to put on the cigars. And it doesn't come in that size, right? So it's not only just putting it on, it's actually measuring it, cutting it, applying it. It's a lot of processes to give you an idea of what it really means to do that. Is now that we have our own factory, we've had it for about a year and a half. Our packaging section, so our factory roughly produces 1.5 million cigars a year. Our packaging section should roughly be 6, 7, 8 people maximum. We're at 15. We basically doubled that number because of that.
Wow.
Because of that. So people often think about, the gold, it's expensive. Yeah, it's thanks to the coronavirus and shit pandemic and everything. Sorry for that, but getting and the war and everything, it's been rising up. The price of gold's been going up and up and up. It's a refuge value, right? But it's not the gold itself is not where the real challenge is. The real cost part and real challenge is where it really adds up is the fact that you actually employ quite a bit more people when you do something like this, just because it is delicate, it is very limiting in time. It's very complicated, but very interesting too, because it is also the pride of the people that do it for us. The team that does it has a real pride in doing it and doing it right. So it's part of our identity at the end of the day.
So when you first did this, I'm sure there were a number of consumers that were like, what do you do with it? Do you smoke through it? Does it peel off?
Oh yeah.
Am I supposed to smoke through it? Kind of like the Oscar and the Island Jim bands that are made of tobacco. Yeah. And I guess the one thing I would say, like, I do know that like gold has no taste. All right. So it's a tasteless mineral, right?
And it's in our case, it's obviously edible, right? It's 24 karat. It's food grade. It's the same thing you would find in certain pastries in certain cultures, foods, for example. So it's something that is actually you could eat the wrapper with it, wouldn't do anything. Tobacco would probably be a little spicy, but it wouldn't change anything. And the other thing is that we had to explain early on when we started was obviously the temperature where tobacco burns is a lot lower than the temperature that gold needs to actually melt, right? So the reality of things is gold simply just keeps the same shape and flakes into the ash, which is pretty funny. And yeah, we've had about everything when we first did it, and you still get those first timers that actually smoke it and then you end up getting some messages, someone that tried to pull up the band and end up, I think your wrapper has problems. No, I don't think the wrapper has a problem, nor the cigar. I think you should not have done this before. I mean, you should not have, but it's part of the game. You do some things a little differently, and obviously it's gonna raise some concerns with some people or some questions. But I think in most cases it's been interestingly well received and not too confusing, at least.
Oh, now it's just you're a known entity. I was just when we first came out with it, I remember people. I remember being in a shop. Somebody's like, "What do you do with this?" I said, "Well, you just smoke right through it. It's not gonna do anything." Didn't affect the burn. It had no problem. I mean, it's just
it isolates a little bit the heat, so sometimes it burns a little faster, but then it catches up. So it's really as it's really the size of the band, it's really no biggie in a way. In this case, but yeah, no, it definitely we definitely had some questions.
the Q, man. You've been walking around. You got some questions there, partner?
Well, you just kind of touched on it. You know, the very first thing that I remember about smoking this cigar a few years back when they hit the market was I remember doing my own research and just like what you guys talked about, seeing that this is actually a food grade gold that goes on this cigar. And, you know, being a lounge attendant, telling people that you just smoke through it, the look on their face would be like, you mean it doesn't peel off? You don't, you just smoke it? You're like, yeah, you just smoke it. It's food grade. You know, you don't do anything crazy to it. And so it was an absolutely phenomenal selling point. So, you know, the one thing that I would tell people about the cigar industry is that it's very easy to sell a cigar that has a story behind it.
Well, Mark Levine, one of our followers, just chimed in and said, the only cigar I ever got sick on was a Cavalier. Then I enjoyed the rest of the box.
But I'm sorry for the first one. It's actually, interestingly enough, I went to smoke with a friend yesterday, and I smoked 2 cigars. Nothing crazy, you know, just one cigar that was very much used to, which was simply a Tabernacle, which went without any hiccups. And then for some reason, I really wanted a second one, and my friend handed me a cigar that I knew from a company I know very well, but the cigar I hadn't had yet. So I was very happy, smoked it, and got actually really sick from the nicotine from it, which I really didn't expect. The ride home was a little funky. Let's put it that way. I hadn't had that happen to me in a long time, and yeah, I was very surprised. The cigar was really good though, but it was very nicotine heavy.
Now, I heard you. Did I hear you mention the Nickups?
Hiccups, I said.
Yeah. I call them Nickups.
Oh, Nickups.
I call them Nickups because, you know, when that triggers it, you're like, oh man, what am I in for on this one?
Hey, y'all, watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
What?
Where was it?
I'm just giving y'all a hard time.
Oh.
Another curious thing I noticed, and I'm going to ask you this question, and I don't want to come off as pompous or something, you know, so I'm going to just say it as my honest self. What is your love affair with Habano tobacco? Now, we all know that Habano is the original Cuban seed, okay, tobacco. Reason why it's called Habano, all right? But you have that leaf pretty much everything you do. Okay,
yeah,
you're
one
that
find
varies
it nearly everywhere.
Yeah, you don't vary from Habano. You have it either
No.
filler, the
Yeah.
binder in the filler.
Yeah. No, I use it a lot. I just think that it's very flavorful if you pick it right. I have a couple of fixations like this. Habano, San Andres for wrapper has been a fixation for a very long time. On and off, just, you know, stuck with it. I don't know. I just think that areas like Amastran, Jalapa, and so on just produce very, very well. You get a lot of opportunity for different things. You can get, you know, broadleaf now in certain areas and everything. And we do experiment with those things, and we do produce cigars with it. But I think it's a more pure kind of expression of tobacco. And I think when I start playing with other things like San Andres or from Mexico or the broadleaf now, or, you know, Pennsylvania lately and stuff like this, at the end of the day, those are escape routes that bring me back eventually to Habano for a bit. And I've tried other things, we worked a little bit with Corojo. I tried for a long time to get something I would be happy with in Connecticut, and I don't know why. Like when you think about it, it's like a row that grow their own Corojo that uses a lot of Corojo. It's kind of, I think we all have a kind of one thing that bugs us, that kind of, or that is at least the heart of what we do. And I think those hearts for me would be those Habanos and would be also Visos, right? So those are the two things that I'm very, very stubborn with. And I mean, it's one of the unique aspects of what we do. You'll find cigars in the portfolio like the Black 2 or the Viso Jalapa, which are the two soft box press lines, which are 100% Viso. Wrapper, binder, filler, 100%. Everything is a Viso. There is no Seco, there is no Ligero. I barely use Secos and Ligero, to be honest. It's really, I think, there is a couple of things like these that are my way to look at things, the same way as, I would say, for example, you'll have people like, James the Black Label or Skipper Roma that are going to work on much heavier tobaccos that I really appreciate smoking, but I'm not used to work with and are not my way of working with, and so on, right? I think we all have a little bit of a way to look at tobacco and it is ours. And I think this is partially one of the things for me, just because I think it's very pungent, very flavorful, and very true to tobacco.
So when you think about Habano leaf, and when I think of Habano, I think of things like spice, leather, coffee, cedar. I get out of it. What is your core characteristics that your palate gets on Habano that really wants you to put that in a recipe that you're gonna feed to somebody?
Interestingly, I would say it really depends on the area where you grow the tobacco, what area it comes from, right? Whether it's Esteli, Jalapa, Metepe, Condega, whether it's Amastran, whether it's Olancho, and so on. I think there is a lot of different characteristics that you can get, but one that I really like with wrapper, for example, when your wrapper is really exceptional, for me, it smells like honey and leather, for example. So we just lost Q. You're playing golf?
He's playing golf.
I feel like we're gonna get that ball straight into the phone. Oh, this is bad. Is Q good at golfing?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
No, he's not.
Well, we just got the answer. But it really depends, I think, on the area. It depends on what priming you're going to use. It depends on your process on it. It depends on a lot of things. If your process
Y'all some
is
shit
slow,
talkers,
you're going to
you
have
know
a more... Well, we were just watching and we kind of saw it not go straight to the hole. So, do that again. Let's see.
Let's see if you can do it again.
Just don't break the phone.
Yeah. And here we go. This is going to be really quiet. Q steps out. Gets it. I think they should have golf.
One
like
out of
soccer.
2, right? That's like a 50.
Golf
That's not a
ought to
very
be
good
like
rating.
golf ought to be
Not
like
a very
soccer.
good rating.
When they go out and they play golf, it should be more like soccer and not like, okay, be very quiet. When the guy sinks the putt, the whole world ought to go crazy, He's trying. That was way too fast. That's his third shot. He should have known how his green is.
That's a 33 now. Yeah, I said it really depends on your areas. It depends on a lot of different things. One thing I can say is, for example, something that would be grown as seco, that would be grown and processed properly from in Jalapa could have sometimes those very beautiful honey and saddle leather kind of smells. In other cases, you'll have a little bit of floral. Hamastan has a tendency of being a little floral, for example. Spices, yes, but it depends where and from what. I'll get more spices of primings that get closer to secos. but it also is influenced by usually a little bit of the heat and different things when you go to those primings. So it's a tough one. Leather you could have, depending on the countries and the areas, you might even get some earth woods. So it's a very wide range of things. It really depends, once again, on your area, on your priming, and on your process.
Okay, and we've heard that a lot. So you know, I'm going to take a short break here and go shout out the sponsors. And when we come back, I got a couple of questions that were showing up in the chat I've been monitoring, and we'll dig a little more into those, and then we'll get a little more into who Sebastien really is beyond cigars. So today's show.
Get ready, because Drew Estate is back and better than ever, with a party so big that only the Lone Star State can contain it. Music, spirits, mouth-watering barbecue, cigars galore, and so much more. It'll be the most epic shindig there ever was. Barn Smoker presents Savage Feast, October 22nd at the South Fork Ranch, Dallas, Texas. Get your tickets now at barnsmoker.com.
Today's show is also brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars. It's funny, I was just down at Platinum Nova yesterday. I drove on down had another visit I had to do, and on the way back, I stopped in beautiful Delray Beach. I stopped into their facility. Nova, it's a family-owned and operated premium cigar company. Only the highest vintage tobacco and the most skilled hand workmanship go into the making of each Platinum Nova cigar. This results in a timeless blend of art and craftsmanship. The Nova brand and family's work are a tribute and an honor to their grandfather to always remember him and his infinite passion for cigars. Their love for cigars started with their grandfather, a dedicated master blender and entrepreneur in the cigar industry. So the next time you're looking for an exquisite cigar experience, pick up a Platinum Nova. You can check them out at Platinum Nova Cigars at www.novacigar.com and on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels. Today's show is also brought to you by Rodriguez Cigars, Key West. 1947 was the year, and the Rodriguez family began the masterful art of cultivating tobacco on their private plantation in the town of Siguane, Cuba. By 1952, La Finca Common Cedar employed over 20 workers and grew over 120,000 pounds of tobacco annually. Of course, 8 years later, the Cuban government nationalized the private plantation, and the Rodriguez family was forced to immigrate to the United States. Although that wasn't such a bad thing, in 1971 they landed, and by 1984 they opened up the Rodriguez Cigar Factory on a beautiful island of Key West. That factory stands as the oldest cigar manufacturer in the Florida Keys, preserving the historical cigar manufacturing industry that began in Key West in 1831. They are now the oldest cigar factory in the Florida Keys, and if you ever want to get down there and check them out, it's the only place I'd go. So check out Rodriguez Cigars Key West at www.rodriguezcigarskeywest.com. And today's show, lastly, is brought to you by Bocock Cigars. The Bocock Brothers Cigars is a new and active brand founded by two Honduran brothers, Bryant and Douglas Bocock. The brand zeroes in on those folks that are looking for easy-to-smoke cigars inspired by unusual circumstances. Very importantly named after their very interesting and imitable last name, Bocock. Look for the rooster with the red bow tie. Right now, they are featuring their Bocock Brothers Signature Edition, which is an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper with a Nicaraguan Habano binder and a Nicaraguan filler. Comes in 3 formats, Robusto, Toro, and Gordo, and is made by the one and only AJ Fernandez. So this is their signature collection. You can check it out. They should be arriving now. You can get them right now, I believe, at Cigar Club. Go to BocockBrothers.com to check out more information. With that, I'm going to come back to our wonderful guest. And One question I wanted to ask you before we got too deep is Shane Meyer asks, when is the 2022 LE coming out? And do you have any information about it that we can get?
So it has started to arrive at, retailers across the country right now. It's going to continue over the next, I would say 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on where the retailers are and everything, and obviously catching up with all the show orders and everything. So we showed it up at the trade show in July at PCA and started shipping a week or two after PCA. So it's landing right now. All I can tell you is the blend, as usual, we won't disclose it. What I can tell you, it's a Toro box press this year, 10 count box as usual. Just under 2,000 boxes, very limited, slightly over half of them for the US, the rest for the rest of the world. So it's, should go really fast as usual. For the rest, pick one up, pick a box up, pick 10 boxes up, smoke them, and you'll let me know.
There you go. Now you take something like a 22, like the LE, a 22 LE. When did you start making that cigar?
The 22 in itself, or
Would it be
in
like
general,
21?
the process with the LEs?
A year earlier or 2 years
Yeah.
earlier?
No, it's usually the previous year to the release where we start working on them. It is a cycle, right? We have once a year that release that happens. The first official one to have hit the market was in 2018, and the process is fairly different because I need that inspiration and not only, I need several things, but that inspiration, that moment of saying, I have something in mind I want to do and try. We need also to have found something different and so on. So it very much varies, right? I had, again, the conversation yesterday, interestingly, with someone in the industry that was asking me if we had started the 2023 and the process and the blending and everything. And I did not. So this has not even started yet, simply because the inspiration, the key to making a special product has not been here yet. So it's very tricky because it really depends on my state of mind at a certain point and on external factors too, like, the tobaccos that we can find. Can we really find something special? What is it going to be? So it's always a time of research. Is there something really bugging me that I want to work with? A couple of things like these. Luckily, the design, everything, the visual stay the same, roughly the same every year. So that's not the whole process that we have to start over every time. But the rest is pretty tricky and always a little bit of pressure because, every year it's a really unique and very different cigar from anything we've done before, and very different from the previous years, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the fact of making sure that we're happy with the cigar every year is one of those stressful points. But it has to stay playful, right? In a way where it's a lab, it's somewhere where we play around with stuff. Sometimes, things that we will never be able to repeat. 2021 or 2020 was a very good example of that. The 18 too, and so on. So it's a platform that we use to do something different, a platform that is a little bit freeing, that allows to really not have to think about volumes, not have to think about, is this tobacco going to be available? None of this, right? The key is really, okay, I want to play with this and I don't care if I can redo it. The point is I want to do it with what is there, right? And that's the beauty of it, I think. But
couple other notes from the audience, and I know Q is going to chime in with a couple of questions right after this. So Chris Cotaire says Cavalier Black 2 are my favorite, so tasty and smooth.
I appreciate that.
Madison Monet says White Series Salomones are primo. Luke Kelly says the 2021 LE was great. And Jorge Bautista Orlantes says, hola from Punta Cana, Dominican Republic.
Our
We're
viewers
in.
need to stop being
Always appreciate all the.
our viewers need to stop being so damn nice. They need to tell them that the 2021 was hot garbage. No one
See?
liked it.
See?
No. Hey,
That's
so the last time I had a chance to sit down and enjoy one of these and have a great conversation about your brand, I was with a guy by the name of Brian Matola. I mean, the name might ring a bell. Great
just a
guy.
little bit.
Yeah, smells terrible, but he's a great guy. What
I was
is
hoping to have him on today.
what is his impact to your business? How influential is he to your everyday operations? What does he bring to your table, and how does he help you with your rollouts, your production? Because I see that he's boots on the ground, like nonstop, like
Yeah.
he's relentless. So
Yeah.
how does he impact your business?
So it's a really good question. You know, we've needed to find someone. So his main position within Cavalier is the head of sales, right? So before he came in, it had been probably about a year that we were conscious that we needed that position filled, but we just couldn't figure out the right person, right? And then that opportunity of him joining us happened, and obviously we jumped on the occasion, right? Brian is someone that, from his background before the cigar industry, is someone who's very knowledgeable and very dedicated and very business orientated, but at the same time very how can I put that? He has a huge heart, right? He's someone that really goes deep into things, does things because it has a meaning for him and everything. And then he spent before that 5 years with a very notorious brand, right? As in the same position, which was Illusion at the time, 5 years prior. So he also comes in with understanding, knowledge, and certain ways of how to make things more fluent, more easy, avoid certain mistakes that we would have been making. So I think he brings a lot of knowledge. He does bring some input in a lot of different aspects. And one thing I think that also added on his side is that he joined us before joining Cavalier. He actually was partner at our factory. So now that he also is within Cavalier, he also for the first time now has quite a bit of chance to spend some time down there. He's been quite a bit there this year and practicing tobacco, working tobacco. So I think he brings a lot of understanding in terms of business and sales, but now he's also learning to express himself in tobacco, with tobacco, and with the people down there, which, we have about 80 to 100 people working at the factory full time. And I think his very human side, very kind side is great for management and helping orientate people down there, trying to bring a different perspective at a factory than just a factory. We want people to be happy. We want people to see it not just as a workplace, but a place where they're happy to go. We all have to work. That's just a reality. It's a word. Our world works like this, right? But it doesn't mean that work can be something that is good. And I think that's something that he really emphasizes on. He has a huge emphasis on that, and kind of works really hard in terms of applicating this philosophy towards our team in Central America too. So a lot of influence on sales. He's traveling a lot, but also I think a pretty deep focus on how we should treat people at the factory, how we should make their day-to-day better, what we can do. I think really, those are the two main, I think, aspects that he manages, amongst others, right? We're still, it's a business, and a cigar business. It's a lot of small to medium companies, including us, which means that everybody touches a little bit of everything. But those would be his main focuses, I would say.
Now, in order to be with the Cavalier group, does the beard game have to be strong? Because I mean, you guys have some amazing facial hair. I mean, my God, the stuff that you see on my face, this is 6 months worth of growth right here. What do you guys do? Is there something in the tobacco that you're growing down there that makes the beard game so
Yeah,
legit?
that's professional secrets. That's the stuff we can't really share with the public so far. Well, we might look at a press release further on.
Gotcha. Make sure that we get it first.
I'll do it. Would be a good April Fool's though.
Don't broadcast it. Cavalier beer bomb. If when you really want to grow your beard like a man.
Right.
You might have picked the wrong industry.
Do you want to get your beard stuck in the tobacco rollers? Sure, we all do.
Not the wrong end. I'm gonna, you know as well as I do. When you go out to like the trade shows, besides cigars and accessories, there's always somebody there that's selling beard balm and skin conditioner, and there's always some booth that has something catered to that, and aromas to keep your room smelling nice in your car.
Yeah, those aroma things I think I had seen in the previous years a while ago, but I think so. The beard balms and everything, I've not had a chance to see that, but I think it's not a bad idea on their side because let's be honest, in the cigar industry, a lot of men, the beard is pretty, a thing that became pretty hyper. Like a lot of men just have beards, whether it's long or not. So it's not a bad strategy, I guess, for those businesses to do that. Not a bad idea.
Got a little something on the side to say, hey, you know what? I got something to go great with that cigar. Have some of this bomb.
You'd be surprised. Brian's been trying to make me do some funky stuff for events, swag and stuff like this. And beard balm has been part of conversations, and I've been pushing back on it. But Brian has his own will. So I wouldn't even be surprised to see it hit the market and me not even know about it.
I mean, anybody who can have a knot at the end of their beard, listen, that's impressive.
Tried that back in COVID when I had my crap down the ear and it was out like this, and just I looked like a dirty Santa Claus. And I tried that. I couldn't get it to do that. It takes, man.
People didn't know that that's how you sign your birthday cards.
So that's like a man bun. Yeah, but that's like a man bun on a beard, right? You got a name? Is there a name for that look? Like, when you got the man bun, it's one thing.
You would be surprised how often people stop me on the street and tell me, "Oh, I've never seen someone do that." So I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen really anybody else do it. I thought it was weird when I started, and then I just got used to it. It just helps keeping everything together because with the wind, then I would look, I would definitely start looking like a homeless if I wouldn't at least tie it a little bit. It's to that point.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's good. Any another question, Q?
I'm good on that, Jimmy.
Let you think a little.
He answered all my hard questions.
So from a business perspective, Sebastien, I don't know if you can divulge it, but what would you say the percentage of cigar distribution is between Europe and the United States now for you? Because I know you're in the Europe market also.
Yeah, so the way we actually split the world is US and then rest of the world, right? We have Europe, Asia, a little bit of Africa, different areas here and there. And then Canada separately as North America, apart from the US. We currently are distributed in slightly over 30 countries. The US sales still represent roughly slightly over 50%, I would say, of our global sales. But so it's interesting. I always believed that because of the size of the US market, the US growth is higher and has been higher for a bit. But with what is happening in the rest of the world right now, interestingly enough, the rest of the world is picking up volume and actually started rebalancing out with the US, which that's why we're around that mark right now, which is fairly interesting, because of the lack of certain other products. Let's to name them, Cuban cigars are very scarce right now, right? Not only the price increases have been high, pretty aggressive, but the scarcity of the product is really there. It's very difficult to find even basic core products that you've never seen off the shelves. And I'm in touch with a lot of people that actually deal with, those kind of products, because I did it myself in the past as a part of one of our activities, being from Switzerland. And the reality is stuff that I was used to find on a regular basis are just not available at all. You just cannot find classics. So the reality is, all those traders, all those companies that distribute usually Cuban products, start turning to New World products. So I think we're all going to see a pretty big spike. I don't know how it's going to play out. I know we've started seeing it roughly 6 months to a year, and the volume picked up drastically in certain areas out of the US, which is interesting. It's going to be interesting on the long run to see what happens. But I think it allows now, it's a good window to reestablish a little bit of balance, or better said, establish a little bit of balance, and have the opportunity to introduce probably some, people that would have been fairly close-minded to New World products, to actually introduce them to that, because there is not that many options, and when the options are there, the consistency is definitely not.
Now, when you deal with like when you deal with Europe, I know like the European palate for many years was different than the US palate. It's morphing now. I see that all the time. They're interested in what we're smoking and talking about to be over there. But when you work with, say, your African clients, your Asian clients, European clients, what do they tell you that they want? I mean, do they all just love your cigars, or do they say, well, I like your cigar, but for my clientele, if you gave me something like this, it would sell off? Did they help you in what you're coming out with over in that market?
No, so the way we deal with it, we get some feedback, obviously, from some markets. But one thing that we practice on international markets, without going too far into details, is we do not force the entire catalog in, right? One thing to know, and you know it probably very well, is the humidors in a lot of places around the world are much smaller than the average humidor in the US, which means that if to have a good footprint in the US, you need 25 facings. In, let's say, a shop in France, if you have 5, you're really well off.
Yeah,
So,
you're a rock star in that place.
Pretty much. So the thing is, just because of a size issue of the places, you cannot force as much products into a humidor. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's not sustainable for the retailers there. So we do leave the option open to our distributors to more or less select through the lines and the sizes, to not be forced with all the product. Now, one thing that we have seen, obviously, one country to another reacts fairly differently. You'll see, for example, Belgium, Italy, Korea, very interestingly, for Norway, for example, would be countries that have a very broad understanding and knowledge of what is happening in the US, and have very much deep interest in cigars that we would have considered maybe 5 years ago still not to be fitting the European market or the Asian market. Talking box pressed, talking Maduros, stuff that usually were really not in the customs for people there. You would go for milder, very flavorful Habano, Connecticut, those kind of things if you would go New World, which those countries are not. Those countries are very much interested in products that, as said, would be box press, for example, or Maduro. Germany is pretty widespread over the board. They've been one of the first ones to really play that New World game, at least on a substantial level. And then you have countries like France and like Spain that are still fairly, to our view, are still very, very classic in terms of cigars. You'll always find pockets, right? But I think it's really a case by case thing still. And so yeah, the reality is Asia usually in most cases what our read has been is they still are more on a classic kind of look, but they also got into much deeper into cigars not for so long, right? A lot of those countries started getting interest, or consumers in those countries started getting more interest into cigars through Cubans, the same way as they did into wine, right? They started with Bordeaux and things like this, and so that forges a little bit their approach to cigars. So it's a little different in Asia, usually, most of the time, at least for us. But it's
So,
regional.
so with that being said, just to keep it on topic, if we are talking about the United States market, what is your most successful market? And part B of that question is, what is your largest market? I know those don't always constitute as the same thing. A large market doesn't necessarily equate to the most sales. So it's kind of a two-part question. Which one is your largest? And then which one do you draw the best numbers out of?
So, we are still a fairly young company, so it's something that jumps all over the board quite often. Slight changes in strategy or just trips make the balance tip otherwise again. But for now, interestingly, Florida has been very well performing very well. Texas has been performing extremely well for a long time since we're based out of here. So that obviously always has a certain kind of impact in terms of sales. And then we see the Midwest growing really fast right now, and certain areas on the coast, well, not directly on the coast, let's say Arizona, for example. I know you're there right now. Arizona is definitely a market that is performing really well too. But it's always hard to say. First of all, there are obviously markets, like PA, Arizona, Texas, Florida, that have 0 to close to no taxes. So that obviously generates usually easily bigger volumes because big players are there, because they obviously retail in a broader sense than just locally. And then you have other territories, other markets, other states in the US which are very cost prohibitive. So you'll never do massive volumes, even though you can have very fond people of your brand, very, very supportive retailers. They'll still be limited because of that. That's something that is very unique to the US. So it's really typical of that country, of the US country, and the way business is here. I think we can easily say that we cover, so our sales team, we've been extremely lucky. We cover the entire US with the sales team, except Alaska right now. But Alaska is Alaska, right? I still hope to go. We actually, I believe, have one account there. I think there are 5-ish shops.
You ought to do the Hawaii. You ought to do the California to Hawaii, Hawaii to Alaska, and Alaska, and then back down through Portland and places like that.
I'll take 5 years. I'll take 5 years and try to do. No, but I think it's interesting. And I do. I'm trying to really put the finger on the differences, as you said, the difference between a very successful or a bigger market. You have different ways to look at it, right? You could have how well received a brand is, but it, as you said, might not translate as much into sales because of several aspects, like taxes, for example, and size of retailers. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quick go into what's new in news and reviews on Stogie Press. When we come back, I'm going to ask you the question. So think about this one. I'm going to ask you the question: what was it like growing up, Sebastien?
That's an existential one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my connection is getting really bad. I think I'm just going away. Let's see.
We so this week I only got 2 reviews in this week. My regular job really took control of my life this week. But and yesterday I was down in South Florida, so I had little time. But first one, I went and I took I took a look at so I took another look at an Amendola Signature Series cannoli. This time the Sumatra, which came in as a 90. This is a Nicaraguan cigar. It is made at La Zona. It's in a Corona format, and it's a $9 cigar. It was released last year, and nice Sumatra wrapper with a Nicaraguan binder and a Nicaraguan filler. Had decent notes, had fruit, natural sweetness, had some pepper, had a little sea salt that mixed in with the caramel that I was getting. So I was thinking of salty caramel, and then also some spice. Good looking cigar, nicely packed, very decent ash. Then it started to give me an off burn, which unfortunately these things happen. Okay, so it got some dings on that. Decent turn, and then a little bit of a flaky ash. So they lost some things on that, but they picked it up, on having a really decent flavor profile. So this is a good cigar. I like actually the San Andreas better, I believe. And I got one more to review. The second one, so I don't know if you know these folks, Sebastian, being down in Honduras, but there's this company that showed up on my doorstep called PG Cigars. Now, this is not Paul Gamarian, not to be confused with that. This is PG Cigars Honduras. All right. This is their cigar called the Lanka, which is named after the Lanka tribe. And the Lanka tribe actually makes this little outer wrap, and I'll show you that right here, which is very cool. At the end, it turns into a coaster. All right. So the local tribe makes all of these, and then they just slap their on this particular Vitola or this particular line, they put this little, label on it that you can just peel off, and you've got yourself a nice little coaster. So very nice to give it back to the community. Overall, this actually is a very decent cigar. It's made in what's called the Pendrigillion factory, which is the family name of the owner, Carlos. This particular one is a Maduro and a Connecticut. There's also I believe a Maduro and a Candela, and then there's just a Maduro. It's got a Habano binder, and it's a triple Lajero. So it's got Jalapa, Jamachán, and Habano Lajero, and it's also got La Entrada and Creo 98 fillers. So it's a very bold filled cigar. With that said, I will say it was harsh on the front end. It was a little rough to get through the first half inch or so. There was some bitter notes in there, this kind of harshness to it. But once I burned through that, then all of these nice notes started coming in. I was getting dark black coffees and dry fruits, and the natural sweetness started showing up, and nut and pepper and spice kind of developed, and some dark chocolate near the end. So very nice cigar. The more important part of this cigar, it's $5. $5. Their whole line is extremely budget oriented. Okay, it's
even with all those exclusive blends that you talked about.
$5. $5. Wow. Okay, I had to triple check that. That is the absolute truth. So you could see there was Maduro Candela. I talked about that. Overall, this is a nice looking barber pole. They did a really good job with it. They're making it at their own factory now. The burn was decent. Had a nice ash cone. And a little jag in the second half, but nothing dramatic. I kind of like this cigar. And for $5, why wouldn't you want to buy a box of these? Right. And I wouldn't put this in a yard guard category. It's not one that you're going to buy to go mow your lawn. You're actually going to sit down, you're going to enjoy this cigar. So, hey, check it out if you get a chance. You can find them on their website. and I have a link in there to that.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
So you touched on something at the beginning of your review on that cigar. What are some typical reasons that you would get some bitter notes while the cigar transitions into
Lajero.
the Lajero?
The Lajeros can give you bitter if they're, too much of it in there. I don't know. Sebastian probably can answer that too.
Sebastian, you got any insight?
Yeah, you can
Young
have
leaf.
a lot of different things. Humidity, lack or too much. You can have the process. The tobacco is not exactly ready. You can have those kind of bitter notes. There's quite a bit of options, and that's without going with a cigar that has obviously no construction issue, right? And when you add constructions issue on top of it, could be the construction, but usually it could be the type of tobacco, the way they actually get together. Maybe it's a little young, meaning the cigar hasn't rested long enough. Not even talking about the tobaccos. Maybe the tobaccos lack a little bit of fermentation, of process. There is a lot of factors that can actually result in those kind of things. And then there are just cigars. It's funny. And I'm trying to put my finger on it. I remember years back there was a cigar. It was a cigar I really enjoyed smoking usually, but it always started really, really harsh, and then it just mellowed down through it. The other thing that you'll find is obviously, and that's most definitely not your case, Jimmy, but a lot of people that will find some harshness in the beginning of their cigars is, when you put that torch just all the way through the cigar.
Yeah, well,
you're aggressing the tobacco so hard that can definitely create those kind of
thank goodness in my reviews I am not that guy.
Yeah, that's why I said I definitely don't think that's your case, Jimmy.
That's not the condition.
It's worth pointing out, right? It all depends on so many different factors. It's so hard to actually narrow it down, especially when you're not the one that has actually experienced it or smoked it. It just,
All right, we're going to go quick into news. So the CRA filed comments on the FDA proposed rule regarding flavors. So as we know, we're still in this battle. So right now, there's a call for comments on banning flavored cigars. We all know what kind of drama that's causing within the cigar industry, but we'll let the guys that know what they're doing do what they do. Hiram Solomon introduced the new cigar, the Treaty. Okay. So that Treaty is a Royal Corojo wrapper, and you'll not know what the binder and the filler is. And it's a $14 cigar and a 6x52 Toro. The Lampere cigars have announced they're now available in Norway. So they're continuing to expand their European footprint. And I believe I talked about this last week. Jossum Krall is releasing their annual Sota Kokar for Sweden. So again, filling the European market with some good cigars that we like here. And then lastly, I put out the last interview from last week for 262 Cigars. So that's out there on the YouTube channel, and you go there, you'll be able to watch it. So with that, that's the news and reviews this week on Stogie Press. So, what was it like growing up, Sebastian?
First of all, I still had hair, so the sun wasn't as hard on me as it is now. It's really a tough question, So obviously, first of all, I grew up and let's put it that way. My way of my English probably betrays me very early on. I grew up in Europe. I grew up in Geneva, Switzerland, was born in Zurich. So it was very interesting because growing up around so many different cultures, those are small cities, but big international centers. So you're really growing up with so many different people from so many different countries, from so many different backgrounds, the same thing at school, right? So you growing up in this atmosphere really was, I think, a beautiful thing because it opens your mind to the world, right? I think to the different cultures, to the foods, to everything around it. And I think I can openly say I was very fortunate. I grew up luckily with a beautiful education, a great family, and yeah, a lot of travels, seen a lot of country when I was a kid, which I hated, by the way, at the time, which is very very funny because it when you look at it back at it as you know as an adult, then a grown up, then when you grow up you just look back at it and you realize how lucky that was, to see North America, to see lots of parts of Europe, Middle East and stuff like this. But I definitely hated it. I would, well, as a kid, I would much rather have played video games or something like this, I guess. But it was great. It was great, and I think I was very fortunate, and I'm very grateful for it.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Not going to school. I've I've been look, I've been traumatized as a kid. That's the one thing I hated. I'm the kid that the parents brought to school in pajamas because the kid thought he would not have to go to school if he was still wearing pajamas. I'm that kid. I'm the kid that hated school, that cried at school, that just when I was a kid, it was my worst nightmare. That's the one thing I didn't want to do. And interestingly enough, if you look back, so my whole family studied, went to university and stuff like this, and I actually decided to drop out of school when I was 17 years old. I just did not want to do it. I just did not see any interest in it, and figured it was not my road, not what I decided what I wanted to do. I mean, it definitely didn't fit me as a way of looking at things. So I would say nearly none. But if I had to pick one, history, I guess.
Oh, okay. You?
Traumatized by school.
A question?
So you mentioned your family. Are you an only child?
No, I have a brother, a younger brother, that currently lives. He actually worked a bit in Africa, lived in Africa. Now he lives in Italy, works, so does some very different things. And interestingly, has absolutely no interest in tobacco or cigars. Absolutely none. I remember telling him when he was studying, I said, hey, in case you change your mind, you can come work with us too. I'm sure, even if it's temporary, et cetera, et cetera. Never got a phone call, right? He did not want, it's not his thing. It's very, we're very different, very close, but very different, even though we live on two opposite sides of the world.
Fascinating. What was your music preference back when you were young, and has that changed as you've matured through the ages?
Oh, I am and have always been allergic to anything mainstream, radio, and everything. It's something I just really can't. I've been very much for a lot of years growing up. I was in everything that was more rock and roll, metal, those kind of things. Very much so. I grew up a lot around also, jazz music, classical music. So those things are things that I really enjoyed early, and I still do. And I think by moving to the US, I also discovered a little more of a different scene of the hip hop industry that is maybe a little less mainstream, which I actually enjoy a lot. So it's pretty eclectic mix between, I would say, probably some, jazz, classic music, hip hop nowadays, and a little bit of Latin music, but more of the classic kind of side of things.
You play an instrument?
I used to play guitar. I really enjoyed it. I was never very good at it.
On a club.
But music is beautiful, right? When you grow up with that, it's something that really forges you also a little bit. And I think it's very important too for kids, if you have a chance as a kid to at least play something. I think it really adds on to your life later on. Do you guys play instruments?
I'm like you. I dick around with a bass guitar for the last 40 years. I think I could play the first lick of Smoke on the Water, but other than that, I'm the guy that I got two. I got a Fender Music Master jazz bass, and I got an Ibanez, and I just plug it in once in a while, and I just start getting into my own thing. I'll work some scales, and I'll get into some kind of riff. I'll come into my head or into my fingers, if you will, and then into my head. And then I just start doing that. Or if you lay a drum track down, maybe I can, but nothing complicated, right?
Yeah.
And the part of it had to do also with, for a number of years, I had put on too much weight, right? So my fingers got fat, and they don't, because you need long fingers, right?
Oh, yeah.
When your fingers are fat on a bass guitar, you can't get it, right? So I hung it on the wall.
Fingers. It takes a lot of practice. It's music is really interesting, but it's tricky. I still have my guitars laying around in Switzerland somewhere at the family house, but I've not touched them in years. I actually sometimes kind of regret it, and sometimes kind of want to go back to it. But then, life takes over again. So, what about you, Q?
You pick it up I just pick it up off the wall once in a while. And it's not like every day or every week, or sometimes months and months go by, and suddenly I'm like, I'm just in this mood to just pick up the guitar and just play with it again.
Yeah.
And you get that one, and like what I loved about, I hit this thing after so many years where I started to get into this kind of a progressive riff I was doing. And, my fingers just started doing things, and it's just hitting the right notes. And the body chill that I got, it was like orgasmic, all right? Because I just felt like everything was clicking right on, and I just like, God, this is what it feels like if you can do this every day, multiple songs, hit those notes. No wonder these guys love getting on stage, man. They ought to be wearing diapers because they're probably wetting their pants.
Music gives you a little bit the same emotions as tobacco in certain ways too, as certain cigars, right? It just
endorphins, man.
When it hits right, it just gives you emotion, stuff that you can't even really, control or anything. You have those chills, those stuff, and I think that's the beauty of music too. It just is emotional. It's deep. It's something that is not. You can't really put words on it. It's visceral, right?
Exactly.
See, you guys get excited about music like I get excited about food.
I like food too, but food doesn't like me. Right?
The last time I picked up a hamburger and my fingers just started tingling, you know what I'm saying? And I just had to realize that it was because it was the buffalo sauce dripping off the damn burger. So yeah, we don't have the same experiences in life. That's my bad.
Yeah, food is something interesting. I don't know how it is for you guys, but for me, thanks to cigars, I learned to appreciate food and food from different areas in different cultures around foods, and it really helped through the years to look at food differently than just something to eat, right? And I think that was a huge change for me with discovering cigars at the time, because it had that effect on my life, not only foods but drinks too, and everything. It really went pretty deep through the spectrum.
And if you think about the food, music, and cigars, right? Let's put those three right on the table. Every one of those are most successful when they have the proper balanced recipe.
Yeah.
Okay. Flavor notes, aromas, musical notes. There are certain notes that just don't work with other notes.
Mm-hmm.
Just annihilates the audience, right?
Oh yeah.
You don't blend the cigar right. You don't recipe your food right. It's just not going to be pleasing to the consumer.
Yeah, so it's like people who eat buffalo and ranch instead of buffalo and blue cheese. Like buffalo and blue cheese is clearly superior over buffalo and ranch. But those people who do buffalo sauce and ranch, they're kind of like they're like the Antichrist. So
well, they offer it though, right?
That was preaching right there. I really like it. That came from nowhere. There must have been some hatred from something that happened, right?
Did you feel that? Did I
Oh, yeah.
make sure that came through in my tone? My delivery was very strong with that.
Oh, it's like putting
Oh,
ketchup on
it came
eggs.
from the guts.
Like ketchup on eggs. I don't understand ketchup on eggs. I know people.
But I'll agree with you on that one, Jimmy. Ketchup on eggs,
You
salt and Kool-Aid. That don't make any sense.
So there's a lot of things that don't make sense. All right, so we've gone past the hour. I want to thank Sebastien for joining us. Sebastien, once again, I really appreciate you taking your time out to sit out there in the hot Dallas sun and talk to us. I want to thank all the sponsors for helping me with the show, because without them, it's hard to do. I want to thank Quinton for always chiming in with the hard questions. And I'm going to give you the last word before everything gets opened up for anybody else who wants to join.
No, thank you again. I appreciate you guys having us. If you want to check us out, you can find us on social. Instagram would be Cavalier_cigars and Cavalier Premium Cigars on Facebook. So we'll always make sure to do our best to answer any messages. My personal is a little more complicated. We do have Sarah that is going to be very good at answering and transferring the questions. So please feel free. We're always happy to talk.
All right.
Thank you for everything.
So that's it. That's the show.